You know that feeling when someone shows up for you just when you need it most? That's what Uber is all about. Not just a ride or dinner at your door. It's how Uber helps you show up for the moments that matter. Because showing up can turn a tough day around or make a good one even better. Whatever it is, big or small, Uber is on the way. So you can be on yours. Uber, on our way.
Today's episode is sponsored by NerdWallet's Smart Money Podcast. As you probably know, making financial decisions, it should not be that hard, right? But the problem is if there's too many options, it's easy to fall for the hype, and you might end up wishing you had done more research before committing. That's where NerdWallet's Smart Money Podcast comes in. Their finance journalists break down real-world money decisions, from investing to home buying to credit cards, with clear, research-backed insights. The nerds help you cut through misinformation and get straight to the facts. Make your next financial move with confidence. Follow NerdWallet's Smart Money Podcast on your favorite podcast app. And stay tuned later in the show to hear more about topics you can learn on smart money.
There's so little out there about disabled parenting. I feel almost desperate for the map, you know?
Welcome to How To. I'm Carvell Wallace. What can a person say about parenting that hasn't already been said? It's nonstop, it's overwhelming, it's mind-blowing, and it's intensely rewarding. But most of all, parenting is physical. You're carrying your kids around, you're making dinner, you're chasing toddlers through grocery stores and parking lots, you're picking up toys. Parenting is often a physical act as much as it is an emotional one. So what happens if you are a parent but you have limits on how physical you can be because you have a disability? How do you do what needs doing? How do you deal with others who doubt your ability to care for your children? These are all challenges faced by today's listener.
My name's Andrea, and I am dealing with chronic illness and disability, and I have some questions about disabled parenting and how to make parenting more accessible.
Andrea has a severe, complex chronic illness, and one of her diagnoses is POTS, P-O-T-S, or postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. It's a condition that can cause lightheadedness, fainting, and a rapid heartbeat when you go from lying down or sitting to standing. It can also cause extreme fatigue, meaning it's hard for Andrea to be upright for long periods of time, and it's even harder for her to leave the house for the day.
It's a dynamic disability, so it's often invisible actually to other people unless I'm using a mobility aid. I'm a part-time wheelchair user, but I didn't start kind of considering myself disabled until, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago or so. And my husband is incredibly loving. He does the lion's share of the work around the house and running errands for us and whatnot. He's actually disabled too, with mental health issues and chronic migraine, but he does a fair bit of caregiving for me.
You said that you didn't start identifying as disabled till a certain point. Can you tell me a little bit about what changed for you?
I think I was just coping with symptoms for such a long time. I basically had normalized it. And I faced a bit of medical gaslighting, and I think I was gaslighting myself about how sick I was. Like, I managed to get a graduate degree, and I was working some pretty intense jobs, and I would just, collapse on evenings and weekends. And it wasn't until I started to get some accurate diagnoses and to really have that kind of validation that I needed to slow down and that what I was dealing with was actually pretty serious. And I think also maybe venturing into disability justice and really challenging some of my internalized ableism so that disability wasn't such a dirty word and that it was okay for me to identify as that.
And part of the reason that you're here today to talk with us is because you're thinking about, or you've been trying to start a family.
Yeah. So my husband and I have been trying to conceive for over 3 years now. We've been dealing with infertility. And the one time we were able to get pregnant, we unfortunately lost our daughter, Maya, to miscarriage. That was about a year and a half ago. We've been undergoing fertility treatments and whatnot, and we're actually gearing up for our next frozen embryo transfer quite soon. So yeah, we've been through a lot of careful consideration about our capacity to parent. I've been trying to learn as much as I can from other disabled parents about accommodations they've asked for. And then, yeah, I think just confronting that I'm not going to be able to mother in the ways I originally imagined.
Our imagination of what is possible is shaped by the default ideas in our culture. And our default idea, I don't mind saying, is very far from including disability and disabled people. So we need to expand it. We need to talk with people who have lived experience with disability.
I'm Jessica Slice, and I'm the author of Unfit Parent, which is about disabled parenting. I have 2 kids and live in Toronto, Ontario.
You may remember Jessica from last year's episode, How to Date with a Disability. But for this conversation, we're leaving behind romantic love and instead focusing on parental love. The subtitle of Jessica's book, Unfit Parent, tells you a lot about her. Quote, a disabled mother challenges an inaccessible world. She spent years writing, researching, and interviewing other disabled parents in the hopes that her work can make parenting more possible for everyone. Stay with us.
If you've shopped online, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button you see at checkout? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy? That's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it. Because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is behind 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names to brands just getting started. And Shopify gives you hundreds of beautiful, ready-to-go templates to express your brand style. So you can tackle the important tasks like inventory or payments or analytics all in one place. Spread your brand's word with built-in marketing and email tools. And that iconic purple Shop Pay button used by millions of businesses around the world? It's why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. Your customers already love it. If you want to see less carts being abandoned, it's time for you to head over to Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/howto. Go to shopify.com/howto. Shopify.com/howto. Today's episode is sponsored by NerdWallet's Smart Money Podcast. NerdWallet's finance journalists do the research so you don't have to. They break down the fine print, cut through misinformation, and give you real fact-based insights so you can make smart financial moves. Smart Money covers a ton of financial questions and decisions. And I took a look at some of the episodes. There's a couple of topics that I am really interested in. Like, for instance, one of their recent episodes was about what's happening in Washington, D.C. and what that might do to car prices. Should you wait? Should you buy right away if you need a new car? Or Smart Money has episodes on things like how you can build wealth right now and how couples can align on financial goals, how to have those tough conversations about money so that down the road they're easier to have. And that's just a small sample of the financial issues that they explore on Smart Money. Make your next financial move with confidence. Follow NerdWallet's Smart Money Podcast on your favorite podcast app.
Our listener, Andrea, and our expert, Jessica Slice, have a lot in common. Their disabilities are comprised of multiple different conditions, including the energy-draining condition known as POTS. But their parenting journey has been a little different. Jessica decided she didn't want to carry a pregnancy herself due to an unrelated condition with serious risk factors. And honestly, she didn't really feel the same pull that Andrea has to pregnancy. Instead, she felt an acute pull toward fostering.
The process of getting licensed was difficult as a disabled person, but it was possible with a lot of work and kind of workarounds. So we were licensed as foster parents through age 12. And we were not planning on adopting. And then the second person we got a call about was a newborn baby who was at that point 7 days old, and she needed a place to stay, they said, for a few weeks to maybe a month. And so we said, okay. The next morning I went to the hospital to meet her and brought her home. We adopted her a year and a half later. she's our daughter, and she's 8 years old now. And I became a mom really unexpectedly, that I really didn't think of being a foster parent as a mom. And so it was like in the course of 12 hours, I met my child.
Does that mean that you didn't have the time to have the anxiety, I guess, is what I'm thinking, that you might have if you were sort of planning on this for years?
Absolutely. I mean, one, I'm just like an extremely uptight person. And so I would have had a lot of anxiety and been planned
parenting, and new parenting does bring out the uptight in the most uptight of us, I've noticed.
Yes. So, I mean, I'm, under no illusion I would have been chill about it. But yeah, no, we were not prepared. I mean, we didn't have baby supplies. We were so unprepared that it almost like bypassed the time of anxiety and anticipation. I remember talking to my therapist at the time, and I said, like, do you think I'm okay because I'm not worried about anything? And she said, no, I think that's actually just a nice way to be. And I was like, well, it's very unfamiliar. But yeah, I did miss the anticipatory anxiety.
This anticipatory anxiety is one of the reasons why there is such a huge industry around parenting advice, influencer content, products, and solutions marketed towards parents. They know you're scared and that the stakes are high, so you're willing to spend money to get the feeling of relief. But pretty much all that advice assumes that the consumer isn't disabled. But at least 10% of the parenting population is disabled. And while that absolutely presents some unique challenges and conditions, in many ways, disabled people are also uniquely equipped for the hardships of parenting. Jessica's book explores this idea that non-disabled people often cite the first weeks with a newborn as one of the most challenging moments of their lives. Meanwhile, disabled people are prepared. It can still be painful and difficult, but it is not the first time they've experienced their bodies not obeying them. It's not the first time they've had to roll with long-lasting unpredictability. It's not the first time they've had to balance near impossible expectations of care. Or, as Jessica wrote, one way to think about the first week is that it's the time during which a large portion of the family is or becomes disabled. Essentially, disabled parents already experienced these conditions and know how to adapt.
I think there's almost just this little grace that's been given to me in my life that her needs as a newborn really matched my physical needs. She was a baby that did not need to move around very much, but what she needed very much was physical contact with my body. She really never cried if we were touching. And because of my disability.
So sweet.
It's kind of the most beautiful time of my life. I had been disabled when I met Clea for 6 years. I'm 42 now. And I had really become very good at sitting still and very good at being bored. I can now sit with myself and never get bored. And that's not a skill I had before disability. And I think that really matched with what she needed. So for her first 6 months, my husband was working full time and I was home with her. I just spent the entire day with her touching me. And I changed all her diapers on the mattress, on a little blanket on the mattress near me, and had the bottles prepared at the beginning of the day. And I put those together on the floor because I couldn't stand up. And she wasn't a baby that needed to be bounced and paced and moved around. She just was a baby who needed my body nearby.
But you also had a second child who, it sounds like the experience was slightly different.
Yeah. So I have a 1-year-old, and we had him very intentionally via surrogacy. So someone we love very much offered to be a surrogate for us. And, that involved planning and fertility treatment and uncertainty. And I've needed a lot more help with him, with resources. He is a fairly content baby, but he likes to move. He likes to do things. He likes adventure. And the positions he needed to eat in hurt my body. He was much more picky about his bottle positions. And so I had a doula friend advise me on where to position pillows and how to position his head and how I could limit the pain I was experiencing while feeding him. So I've had to call on a lot more resources parenting him, just the nature of his personality, the nature of my body. I'm also, working as an author at this point. There's other things taking my energy. And I have an 8-year-old who's using energy. So it wasn't the same like little magical bubble that I entered into with my first child.
Yeah. So having heard that, Andrea, I mean, I know that you're somewhat familiar with Jessica's story, but I kind of want to turn the mic over to you. Like, what questions do you have? It's like, if you could just sort of get any information from Jessica right now, what would be the first thing you'd ask?
Oh my gosh, I wish I could download like everything, like all of her concrete day-to-day life. I mean, like we could get into some of the details of daily life, I suppose, like sort of with some specific pieces, if that's helpful to get it really concrete.
I'm happy.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get into details. Do you want me to say what it's like from the time I wake up?
I would love that. Yeah.
Okay. So, Andrea, I don't know what your medication schedule is like, but for me, I take medication in the morning that gets my blood pressure up and my heart rate down. And I really can't do anything until those are in my system. And it takes about an hour. So typically I get up before either child so I can take my medicine and then just lie there while I'm waiting for it to work. If my husband goes out of town, I will sleep with the newborn near me in a bassinet or a crib near me so that once my medicine has worked and he's waking up, I can grab him and put him in bed with me. We've always formula fed. And, I think something that Alice Wong talks about sometimes is how disabled people need to use single-use plastic sometime. And I get these pre-made formula bottles. They don't need to be refrigerated, so I can keep them within arm reach in the bed.
Handy. Yeah.
And I also keep on the bed a changing pad, diapers, wipes. We don't use trash cans to put poopy diapers in. Like we don't use like a special one. We use doggy poop bags, so I can keep those near the bed too. So if he poops, I can change his diaper, put it in that, and just like throw it out the door, and it's in a plastic bag.
I love that.
Yeah.
I keep wipes for my hands and sanitizer within reach, a change of clothes, burp cloths, everything, so that I can, in theory, not have to leave bed for hours and take care of a newborn. I also have these little like yoga pillows that I got to prop my arms and prop him, a variety of tools to help position the bottle if I'm getting too tired from feeding him. And I also have an adjustable bed so that I can adjust my position and his position based on what he needs. And then together with my doula came up with a low energy way of burping him as much as he needs to be burped.
Oh,
wow.
Cool.
Tell
what
us
does
about
that entail?
Yeah.
So instead of holding him up on my shoulder and using my arm strength to like hit his back as hard as possible, I'm holding my hands like it, but let me figure out. So I prop him up with one hand and have the other hand on his stomach. And then I sort of rock him gently back and forth so his own stomach is pressing the burp out.
Yes.
And then I don't have to move my arms as much. I don't have to lift him into the air or lift my arms into the air. So it minimizes.
He's like seated during this. Is that right?
He's seated and he pushes his own burp out with his stomach against his thighs. So that, this would be so boring for so many people, but that is how I could take care of a newborn for the morning as someone who can't sit up on my own or stand up or handle a lot of energy expenditure.
I like it when Andrea said that she wished she could download everything from Jessica's day, because this is one of those situations where so much of dealing with the problem is in navigating the minutia, like literally minute to minute. How do you hold the child when you're feeding? Where do you put your elbow so that you are balanced and not dizzy? Non-disabled people take these millions of tiny physical choices for granted. But for disabled people, they can be the difference between something being impossible and something being doable.
I love the way, Jessica, that you're normalizing parenting from bed. It made me think of something from Carvell's memoir, actually, about how adults are always telling kids something is special and kids are always believing it. I'm like, maybe I'm going to be able to tell my rainbow child that it's, their special spot or something, getting to hang out with me in bed, and how that's maybe a bit unique or something compared to other kids. Or
I love that.
That's a great, thank you for making that connection. That is one of the like powerful things about parenting, is that there's this love that runs through, and that when you're a kid, whatever your parent is doing, you can find a way to believe that it's through love somehow, like that makes sense to you as a kid. And unfortunately, that's like in cases of abuse, that can be terrible. In way more cases, it not only normalizes something that society has said, no, this is bad, or this isn't the way it's supposed to be, but it also allows a kid to not see it as normal, but literally see it as like a loving, beautiful thing. I want to talk a little bit about this notion of parenting from bed, because it feels like as a concept, it's so heavy. It's got such heavy connotations given our obsession with sort of like everyone's worth is based on their ability to produce under capitalism.
Yes.
And so
exactly.
the whole public notion of like a parent in bed, I think of all these movies I saw when I was growing up, What's Eating Gilbert Grape or whatever, where it's like, oh, your mother's in bed, like you have the worst life ever. You know what I mean? Like, talk a little bit about that stigma and how you have reframed that for yourself.
I mean, I feel very embarrassed about it a lot, but I'm forcing myself to still talk about it because I don't actually believe my embarrassment. I think I've just been told that parenthood looks a certain way. You know, I imagine this mom like running around the house and tossing laundry in the laundry and washing the dishes and making some beautiful meal, and just like this kind of harried mom. Maybe she's going to yoga or something. And then I see like my life and I'm just in bed. And then, and it feels embarrassing, but I don't believe it's worse. And my kids don't believe it's worse. It's funny. So I was on a walk with both my kids this weekend. My eldest said, is Unfit Parent for grownups or for kids? And I thought it was very sweet. She was asking about my work. And I said, oh, it's actually so for lovely. Grownups. And she said, why did you say Unfit Parent? It's like, I'm sort of painting the picture. Like, she asks me a lot of questions about my life in general. And she really doesn't. She doesn't care what I'm up to normally. Yeah. She's 8. But, and I said, well, did you know that some people don't think disabled people should be parents? And she was shocked. She could not believe it. And she said, but if that's a kid refreshing. Doesn't have a disabled mom, they don't get to ride on a wheelchair. And she wasn't trying to like say something so I could later say it on a podcast.
So like tweet it and go viral with it.
But she truly she thinks her life is better because when we're out, she's 8 now. She doesn't ride on my wheelchair, but her little brother does. And when we're out, he's not in a stroller. He's on my lap. And she's like, that is obviously better to ride on your lap than ride in a stroller. And it's just wild to her that anyone would not want this.
Andrea, how is this conversation interacting with some of the things that you're carrying with you as you think about parenting?
Oh, it's just like filling me up with new possibilities for what things can look like. There's this child psychologist and parenting educator, Dr. Vanessa Lapointe, who I used to hear speak sometimes back when I was working in the early childhood development space. And she talked about how for healthy child development, kids need at least one big person who lights up when they walk in the room and shows up for them over and over again. Oh. And I'm like, I can do that. Like, so yeah, sometimes it just takes, it's just like a little pep talk to reassure that these like you said, Carvell, these like capitalist ideals of this, super able-bodied person running around, taking care of all these things and being productive, that doesn't have to be what a child feels in terms of the love from a parent. And the ways that I can care might look different, but could still be just as great, or as in Jessica's daughter, like maybe even better than someone who's, not using a wheelchair, let's say.
Yeah. Well, Jessica, that reminds me of a line that I think is in your book, if I'm not mistaken, which is something like, fortunately, love isn't a collection of capacities of practical contributions. And when I was reading the notes, I highlighted that line because I was like, really? It isn't? Because my whole life has been based on the idea. Wait, I need to go back and reinvestigate. Because, I think that is an idea of love that we have, that love is sort of like what you can do for people, right? Like you do for stuff for people, and that's how they know that you love them. But I think
like
that's
acts of service or something, like as your love language.
Yeah. Or just like being useful in some way. And it's not that it's not that, it's just that that's not all it is. And specifically around parenting and specifically around mothering, it just strikes me that like we've had this story beat into our heads for years that like the job of a mother is to thanklessly manage all tasks for everyone at all times. And that's how you know that she loves you. And if she doesn't do that, then she doesn't love you.
Oh, and you're speaking to this like martyr rule too, that I think is sometimes baked in, that like mothers have to be so selfless. And like, I can't afford to not pay attention to my own needs if I'm going to be able to, take care of myself day in and day out. So I think that will be interesting to confront as well. I wonder how that shows up for you, Jessica, like how you prioritize your kind of, physical and so on needs when you're also trying to keep 2 children alive.
Well, I mean, it's funny. So, gosh, I've thought of a few things. One, there is suffering living in the body I live in. My kids are aware of that. They know when things hurt. My daughter brings me ice packs for my back when she sees, like, if I wince. And I think a lot about that. Like, what is that putting on them? But I think about my own life and people I know and people who were hurt by parts of their childhood. And I think the things that really mess with us, is if we're told that our lived reality isn't real. Like when we're lied to in a way that contradicts with something we are experiencing. I mean, God, I may be wrong, but I think that telling the truth to my kids in a way that's appropriate is the way I can make it so this doesn't screw them up. I know it gives my 8-year-old permission to say when she needs things or when things are hard for her or when life is hard for her, that we're a family that is very aware of all of our limitations. And we talk about it a lot. My husband's autistic and he talks about that openly in the house. So there's this sense that like, well, look at us. We're all just eating things all the time and unable to do things sometimes.
You're setting this example, like role modeling that for them to ask for their needs to be met, right?
Yeah. And they may be sad about part of it. But every parent has things about them that will make their kids sad sometimes. Like the comparison I make in my mind sometimes is, okay, what if I were a doctor? What if I were a surgeon? Like both of my kids would have things about their lives that were better. I mean, I would make a lot of money, which others don't do. But also, I would work a lot more. I might have retained more of my perfectionism and more of my obsession with accomplishments or certain kinds of accomplishments. There might be this part of my personality that was there that disability has kind of like pried from my hands. I don't know all the ways I would be if I were a doctor, but I know it would hurt my kids in some ways and I know it would help them in other ways. And I don't think disability is wholly different. And then something you said, Andrea, about kids need someone who will light up when you come in the room. We've been joking because our youngest is a pretty serious baby. Like he always has his projects he's working on and he has like a permanent furrow in his brow and
projects. That's amazing.
But he's 13 months now and he has started, anytime someone comes in the room, he opens his mouth really wide and he goes, "Hi."
Oh,
and we realize it's because it's what I do when either kid walks in the room. And so he's imitating. He's my just absolute joy when I see my kids is so reliable to him that he thinks it's how you greet people.
Wow.
That can't be worth nothing.
After the break, we're going to talk about high expectations and sleep deprivation. Don't go anywhere. If you've listened to the How To podcast for a while, then you know how important acceptance is when it comes to personal growth. And do you know who else is big on acceptance? Discover. You see, Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. That's a whole lot of places and a whole lot of acceptance, which is great for Discover, but even better for you. Based on the 2024 Nielsen report, learn more at discover.com/credit card.
This episode is brought to you by Defender. Are you a trailblazer, a risk taker, someone with countless tales of epic adventure? Then you won't want to miss Destination Defender, an epic weekend festival designed for Defender owners and enthusiasts, taking place in Port Jervis, New York, from May 16th through 18th. This unforgettable weekend includes inspiring talks, off-road driving courses, chef tastings, and live music. If you're ready for adventure, the Defender is too. It's a vehicle built for drivers capable of great things, whether you're venturing into uncharted territory or just escaping for a weekend getaway. This May, connect with fellow adventure seekers at Destination Defender, an unforgettable weekend festival in Port Jervis, New York, created for those who embrace the impossible. Enjoy outdoor activities, live music, chef tastings, and more, all at Destination Defender, May 16th through 18th. To learn more, please visit DestinationDefenderUSA.com.
Introducing Notion Mail. It's the inbox that thinks like you, automated, personalized, and flexible to finally work the way you work. With AI that learns what matters to you, it can organize your inbox, label messages, draft replies, and even schedule meetings. No manual sorting required. And I have to say, I've been using Notion Mail for a little while now, and it's kind of amazing. It somehow intuits what I want to read and what I don't want to read, and it takes all the stuff that would make me crazy and it puts it in this one little folder so that I can wait until I'm feeling particularly calm to deal with it. With the AI organized inbox, you can tell Notion AI what types of emails are important to you, and it automatically will label them and sort them as they arrived. And to stay focused and distraction-free, you can split your inbox into custom views like topic or urgency or sender. And you can fly through all of those emails with snippets by using this one-click email template to quickly send whatever is repetitive for you, like intros or follow-ups or thank you notes. You can even include attachments and scheduling links. Get Notion Mail for free right now at notion.com/howto and try the inbox that thinks like you. That's all lowercase letters. Notion.com/howto to get Notion Mail for free right now. And when you use our link, you're supporting our show. Notion.com/howto.
We're back with Andrea and Jessica Slice, author of Unfit Parent, A Disabled Mother Challenges an Inaccessible World. I keep going back to this notion of like what you said you thought mothering would be, that you're cleaning up and you're like going to yoga and the reason I keep stumbling over that is because think about how many people I know, how many mothers I know and knew when our kids were little who were tortured by that idea that like they probably, most of them didn't view themselves as disabled, and yet they themselves felt like they couldn't live up to this ideal. They were constantly coming up short. The dishes were in the sink. The kid didn't eat a healthy breakfast this morning. This was something that people were always struggling with. What I'm getting at is like talking about some of the ways that people who don't view themselves as disabled are also like oppressed and harried by these ideas around ability and productivity.
So true. It impacts all of us, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Carvell, you just articulated the thesis of the book, which is that the ways that disabled parenting is stigmatized are also like the things that end up trying to destroy all parents, because disabled parents are like made invisible, but you know, non-disabled parents are supposed to be able to do anything, to be all powerful, to be able to make this whole thing easy and perfect just in willpower alone. And neither side of that is life-giving. Is there a specific situation you feel anxious about, like that we could just spend a couple minutes problem solving from what I have figured out with it? Like feeding or diapers or doctor's appointments or illness, or what is there a thing that you go back to?
Yeah, good question. I think one of the biggest ones that keeps coming up for me is the kind of sleep deprivation, night feeding stuff, which I'm sure all parents are anxious about to a degree. Sleep is just so important to me because the less sleep I get, the worse my symptoms are. So I've been trying to wrap my head around minimizing the impact of the sleep deprivation while still being able to attend fully to this, child, especially during, the newborn phase.
I mean, God, it's like the nights are the darkest time of parenting.
Yeah.
I feel like that's when yeah. God, nights are so impossible. If you were to wake up in the night and not have to stand up, but feed a baby from bed, would you be able to go back to sleep after that? Or how much would that mess with your symptoms?
Oh, good question. Yeah, I'm often able to go back to sleep, but I am using sleeping pills these days to help cope with insomnia. And so It's going to be interesting because I do have to stop those for first trimester. I'm assuming I would probably have to be off those during breastfeeding as well. It's been a while since I've just been on my own with no sleep aids to kind of see what it's like when I wake up during the night.
I would do something that will probably be hard, which is have your partner around for your breastfeeding so that he can do diapers and burping and getting the baby back to sleep, because the actual feeding, at least in my experience, is about 40% of the time that the baby's awake. So if you can do that part, pass the baby off, really and then focus on your body. Also, breastfeeding is lovely and good. And also, it's not worth making yourself sicker so you miss all the special parts. I think feeding is a very personal choice, but there's so much pressure to do each of those things like as good as possible. And I'd say that is, in my opinion, as someone who feeds her children a lot of store brand, or her eldest child, a lot of store brand chicken nuggets, I would say that is not important.
No, that's such a good point.
I'm also someone who has ketchup on my quilt. But
it strikes me that division of labor in the household is like super important in these scenarios. And I'm curious, Jessica, how you have navigated that, and especially given the fact that there's so much default labor put on mothers at the beginning.
So I don't know what your natural tendencies in your house. I know your husband does a lot of caregiving. If I weren't disabled, I would, because I like things done the way I like them, and because the natural gender roles, I would undoubtedly do almost everything in our house. But because of my disability, I end up doing the organizing, the computer stuff, just the emotional business, the gift buying, noticing when clothes are small, throwing out socks with holes. I'm the tax guy. I do all that. And then David does all the dishes. He's the physical person in our house. And I think we end up with a 50-50 balance because of it. It sort of forced us into gender equality.
Yeah.
That I just physically could not do the things. So I don't know, who carries like the emotional, the computer, the kind of behind the scenes stuff. But
yeah, similar to us, that's been generally my role. Yeah. I'm like significantly more organized than my husband.
Yeah.
And so that ends up working out quite well.
Yeah, it was only last year that David found out I do our taxes. He said, "Oh, I didn't know we did taxes." What?
Wow.
Yeah, but I don't even know what the inside of our dishwasher looks like. So there's just a pretty stark division.
That's awesome.
Andrea, as you think about this journey that you're undergoing, what are some of the things that you're excited about and hopeful for?
Oh, what a great question. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's funny you're bringing up, I'm getting like a well of kind of like choked in my throat. Cause there's so much grief there that I think I have these moments where it's really hard to actually imagine the future because it's just so painful when you don't know if it's actually ever going to happen for you. So I just want to kind of acknowledge that, I guess, first. And also because I've been using mindfulness as like one of my main coping tools with chronic illness and with this infertility journey. And it's keeping me like so grounded in the present that I realize, oh, I used to like spend all my time with my head thinking about the future. And now I almost do too little of it. Oh my gosh, yeah, there is a ton that I'm hopeful for and excited about. What's happened though is that my world has kind of shrunk. Like, I'm guessing that what I might have been excited about before I took into account the limitations that I have might have been bigger, grander plans with kids, perhaps, like camping trips and, I don't know, playing sports with them and just things that are kind of more physically active, perhaps. But now I just cannot wait to just like hold a baby in my arms, to like sniff them. You know, that like amazing baby smell. I just want to like sniff them. I cannot wait to see my husband, you know, being a father to a living child. I think he's just going to be adorable. And yeah, just, I don't know. It's going to be the small moments, I think.
When you said that thing about lighting up when the kid walks in the room, it reminded me of, you know, I really, sounds like such an obvious thing to say, but I really loved my kids. Like I really loved my little kids. I mean, I still love them. But when they were, you know, but when they were little, I would really be just so genuinely excited to see them. They were just such amazing people. And I just would be like, this is so great, you know? And I just love that you pointed that out as like a key thing that children need to develop, you know? Because again, we're always told that, you know, and I was always suspicious of this stuff, but it's like, you got to get them in this school and you're in that soccer club. You should be in this one. And you have to have this stroller cost $1,500, but your baby's going to die if you don't have it, you know, and all this stuff that they're selling you. It's always just seemed really off to me growing up. And like, we raised kids in Oakland and Berkeley, and there's no shortage of like capitalist parent shaming around here, you know, because you have people with money and advanced degrees. And that's one hell of a combination when it comes to having babies around. And so I was always a little suspicious of that whole thing. And I did feel in my heart that like mostly what we need to do is be present for these kids and love them and make them laugh and hold them when they are sad and try to be there for them when they're scared, and just kind of like just take them with us and just talk, and when we can, and show them stuff in the world, and you know, just be buddies to them, just be people who are with them so that they don't feel like they have to navigate the world alone, you know?
So true. I love the way you describe that.
I mean, you'll find like this, I did run a parenting advice show for a long time, and you know, like a lot goes on, especially when they start turning teenagers and they start talking back, and sometimes you're not as happy to see them walk into a room.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's honest. Yeah.
Sometimes they're on your nerves and you're actually like, could you get away from me right now? But like that annoyance is real at the time, but it doesn't change the core love that you have for them, you know?
Yeah, it's magical. And I think all of this pressure put on parents to do things exactly the way you're describing, Carvell, I think it ends up hurting the parents and the kids too, because it's a distraction from that life is hard and temporary and bodies are fragile and people die. And I think for me, I worked so hard to have a good life before because I thought I could like outrun the truth, and being disabled, at least for me, forced me to sit with it and just kind of acknowledge that bodies fail and hard things happen and there is a lot of suffering. And I think parents, I really believe this. I think the thought of our kids suffering or the thought of separation from our kids is so intolerable that we'll do almost anything or buy almost anything if it makes us think we get to avoid that. Like, what can I possibly do to insulate myself from the fact that nothing is promised? There is nothing we can do to insulate ourselves from that. And so it just ends up being a distraction, and it feels false and corrosive. And then there's this sense that you've never done enough to like adequately insulate yourself. And so I don't know, it feels like it's what you were saying, Andrea, about grief. Like the only thing to do is grieve and accept that life is very hard.
Yeah.
I guess that's very dark. We were on a walk this weekend and my daughter was upset about a cookie situation.
Uh-huh.
And we were talking about happiness. And I gave her some advice and David was like, I think that's kind of bad advice. And I said, Kalia, a thing I tell myself, which is true, is bad things will happen today that I do not like. And I do tell myself that every morning.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just kind of need to hear it because I'm like, okay, bad things will happen today that I do not like.
Yeah. And people do not like that one. It's one of those way homers. And the other thing too is that a lot of the stuff that I told my kids when they were young that I thought was like the deepest, most powerful insight, they don't remember at all. And then other stuff that I remember that I don't remember saying at all, that just like, remember how you used to always say X, Y, and I'm like, I never remember saying that. And they're like, I've lived by that, Dad, since the day you said that. So I'm just like, I have no memory of saying that at all. So it's like, you don't even know what they're going to remember or not remember of what you say.
True.
Like when I think about it, the only thing I know for sure that is translated from their childhood exactly as I hoped it would have translated, right? Because everything's sort of like you input one thing and the output is not what you predicted with kids. But the one thing I feel like we did input that has outputted what we thought is that we really input love, like love in the real sense, not in the sense of like performance of love or as like constantly doing stuff, but love in a true sense of like acceptance of who you are. You know, even when the way you are isn't pleasing to me, I still care for you and hold you and love you and want to give you space and want to encourage you to be your full self.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. I think you both are kind of speaking to like a release of control, maybe. And like Jessica, when you talk about how disabled folks are uniquely prepared for and skilled for parenting, I think maybe I'm realizing that one strength I'm going to bring to this is that I used to be like a hell of a lot more controlling and like quite a perfectionist. And I've had to really challenge and let go of a lot of that through, you know, chronic illness and disability. And so hopefully that will set me up to be able to be more open and accepting as a parent with all of the, you know, who knows what will come up and how the kids are gonna, like just what you're talking about, Carvell, is so beautiful about just accepting them however they kind of show up in the world.
Andrea, was this helpful to you?
Oh, this was such a beautiful, nourishing conversation. I feel like it's been both like the super like micro concrete details of daily life and also this like huge big picture parenting philosophy, profound wisdom drops on me. So I'm taking both with me. Thanks to both of you.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so. And you will be able to problem solve, and there will be so many disabled people who want to problem solve with you.
Thank you. That means a lot.
I want to leave you with one last passage from Unfit Parent, which takes us back to the idea that the first week with a child is similar to experiencing disability for the first time. Jessica writes, quote, "The first weeks lay bare that we cannot, through the force of our wills and our perfect behavior, make our babies and our bodies do what we want them to do." So, what is the solution? The answer, surely, is not that everyone just needs to be disabled so that they can eventually adjust well to parenthood. And it's not as if the people who have trouble acclimating to parenthood are doing something wrong. Their reactions are valid. Labor is punishing, and feeding a baby is much harder than it looks on TV. And not sleeping destroys our sanity. Finding the first week hard is not a personal failure, but it's worth considering what wisdom and skills disabled people can share to make it easier for everyone. If non-disabled parents entered that first week with a disability-informed understanding of what makes a life good, what an individual's efforts can yield, and the fragility of all bodies, perhaps those 7 days would not feel as destabilizing. The dream of perfection corrodes. Thank you again to Andrea for letting us be a part of your parenting journey, and a big thank you to Jessica Slice for sharing all of your experience and advice. We'll link to Unfit Parent in the show notes. It's a wealth of information, and we truly didn't even scratch the surface, so please check it out. And please share this episode with your parent friends because that helps us help more people. Are you ready to start a new journey, but you need a personal guide? If so, send us a note at howto@slate.com or leave us a voicemail at 646-495-4001 and we might have you on the show. How To is produced by Rosie Belson with Kevin Bendis. Joel Meyer is our supervising producer. Merritt Jacob is senior technical director and composed our theme music. Charles Duhigg created the show. Courtney Martin is my co-host, and I'm Carvell Wallace. Thanks for listening.
Today's episode is sponsored by NerdWallet's Smart Money podcast. Money can be confusing. Should you invest in ETFs, get a travel rewards credit card, buy a house, or just build a really fancy pillow fort?
That could work. No shame in pillow fort game. Or you could just tune in for clear, research-backed financial insights.
I'm Sean Piles, a certified financial planner professional.
And I'm Elizabeth Ayola. We're the hosts of NerdWallet's Smart Money podcast, where you bring the money questions and we bring trustworthy information backed by NerdWallet's expert analysis, without the jargon or the sales pitch.
Our nerds do the research so you don't have to. We'll help you understand your options so you can make the best decision for your situation, from optimizing your investments and maximizing credit card rewards to making big money moves with confidence.
Plus, we keep it real. No lectures, no judgment. Just tips and tools you can use to build wealth and take control of your finances. Think of us as your financial GPS, helping you navigate your money decisions and avoid expensive wrong turns.
Whether you're planning for retirement, weighing a big purchase, or just want to make your money work harder for you, we've got insights that you can use in real life.
So, if you want practical, straightforward, and actually useful financial knowledge, plus a little bit of fun along the way, follow NerdWallet's Smart Money podcast on your favorite podcast app.
Trust us, future you will thank you.